Welcome to the Growth Show. Today we have a very special guest. We're honored and have the pleasure of having Shiv Sahgal from Unilever on the show today. Shiv, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm fundamentally a sales and marketing person. I have over 20 years of experience across geographies and across companies. I've worked in India and Indonesia, in Singapore when I looked after the regional portfolio, and now I'm here in Malaysia looking after foods and refreshments.
Fantastic.
That's pretty much my life in a nutshell, and thank you very much for having me on board. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Great stuff. And Unilever has sort of set the bar with how brand should be marketed, especially in its own categories. There's some fantastic success stories. Maybe we can share some of the success stories that you've personally had some experience with. The ones the Asian-based ones, perhaps.
Firstly, thank you for your generosity. I think there are absolutely great stories emerging across the board. There are a lot of companies who've done a great job. Unilever happens to be one of those companies. Now, I'm fortunate enough to have worked on some of these brands which have been extremely good success stories and extremely great inspirations for the industry, and and thank you for allowing me to share that. I think a couple of years ago I was working on a brand called Bango, which is Indonesian soya sauce brand, and it's an amazing story, and it's one of the brands you can really fall in love with. Now, Bango is a brand which was a challenger in the soya sauce market. It was the by far number 2 player when it came on board, became a part of the Unilever portfolio, and in a span of 10 to 12 years, it kind of rose to market leadership. Actually less, to be honest with you, and it is it is the market leader by far, and the market leader is now probably less than half the share what Bango has, and this has fundamentally been driven by getting the brand purpose to the core of the brand, and that's what the marketing team in Bango, this is something which I inherited and something which I hope to have kind of built upon and passed on, and you can see it working really well for Bango, where it took a very strong stance in saying no, every brand has a very important role to play. Brand purpose is a very important thing. We need to figure out how we make a difference in the societies, how we make a difference in the lives of our consumers. And so Bango is a brand which is, I would say, one of the most amazing homegrown success stories within Southeast Asia of a brand which has reached an unenviable position because of the hard work which has been done, and it's basically based on the brand purpose.
Right. So tell us a little bit about the brand. How did you get the storytelling? How did you get the purpose into the story? And how did you disseminate that?
Okay. So fundamentally, the way it worked in the case of Bango was the cornerstone of the story was around this soybean seed, the black soybean seed, which is the core of Bango, where the company and the brand did a lot of work with the university, with the Indonesian Gajah Mada University, with the consumers and with the farmers, where it co-created the seed, which was then used by farmers, and has a very strong support program for farmers, where there are close to 9,000 farmers whose livelihoods have been improved thanks to the joint work which was done. And Bango has adopted these and has taken on board. Now, what this ends up doing is it ends up ensuring that there is good quality ingredients which come into the making of Bango, which enhances the consumer's taste when they cook at home, and it kind of loops back into this large 9,000 farmer community whose livelihood is being improved. And this story is what goes out to the consumers and makes the brand a lot more endearing. And this is how, one example where a brand has brought purpose to life and has really made a difference not only to the lives of the people but also to in the competitive environment.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. It's nice to see how there's such a sense of community and purpose rallying around a brand that really is trying to not just peddle its products, but actually trying to work with the greatest cause, the greater movement. I think the Dove campaign is renowned for that as well. What sort of campaigns did you use for Bangor particularly?
See, in Bango, it was just about showcasing the work done, and it was, if you kind of go to the core of it is sincerity. You can't do something just for the show of it. It has to be something you really believe in. It has to be something you've done to scale. So it's not done for the idea of storytelling, because today, in this day and age of transparency and social media, lies like this get caught out. So at the cornerstone of it, it is about getting it being authentic to the brand and to the purpose. And it's that story which you take forward, which adds the credibility to the whole story and adds credibility to the brand. So if you dial back, I don't think it was fundamentally done to tell a story. It was fundamentally done because the brand believed in its purpose, and it allowed to be authentic. And you did it to scale, and you took this entire story and you flashed it to the consumers, and which was also adding value to the brand per se. And you did it across touch points. You did it back of pack, you did it in store, you did it in communication, and because it's done with scale, it was authentic, the consumers received it well. Now, if the same thing had been done which had not been authentic, you would have been caught out.
Any other stories, perhaps with Lipton, perhaps?
Yeah, so Lipton, for example, Lipton in Malaysia, we're getting some excellent results. We are still working on it. It's always work in progress of integrating the brand in the society, in the fabric of the country, in the societies we operate in. So, for example, if you look at Lipton per se, it's an international tea brand, perhaps one of the largest tea brands in the world. In Malaysia, what we've done is we kind of really got back and understood the consumers, and we realized that how the Malaysians drank their tea was very, very different, and the expectation of the tea was very different. And for that, we designed a product which is available only in Malaysia, which is the pot bag, because it was the whole ritual around it. And then we worked about systematically ensuring it became part of the fabric of the nation. Like, for example, in Ramadan, Lipton would be in mosque during fast breaking and ensure people got that hot cup of tea before they broke their fast, which is very important to start your fast breaking with a hot beverage. So it makes it a little easier on the stomach lining. The other thing which we did, which we started last year and something we'd like to carry on doing, is that I think the idea was born after when we kind of looked at this was the 60th year of Malaysian independence, and what do you do around it? And we suddenly realized that one thing which unites Malaysia is teh tarik. It's a beverage which is unique to Malaysia. There is a sense of pride. Okay, it cuts across gender, it cuts across ethnicity, it cuts across age group. There's a huge sense of pride with teh tarik. And we said, now how do we make that the big Malaysian selling story? And we started this year with the whole teh tarik day, where we said, listen, let's kind of rally a lot of support around it. Let's kind of create this as the next big, Malaysian asset, next big Malaysian export. And, we did a lot of sampling, and it's got a very good response. So it's just a question of a brand which rarely gets authentic in what it wants to do, and it's a brand which is integrating itself in the society it operates in.
What a fantastic story, and I think there's so much more for Lipton up ahead as you carry on and expand on this theme alone.
I hope so, and I hope, honestly, this is going to be a challenge for every brand. You have to really reinvent yourself, and you cannot rest your laurels. I mean, even a brand like Bango or Dove or any of these great brands really need to keep challenging themselves and really need to come up with the next big idea, the next great idea. One thing which we've learned, is that we need to unlearn as quickly as and relearn as quickly as anything else, because what worked last year is very likely not going to work this year. So you really need to figure out, because the consumer is changing, the environment is changing, and this is now the new normal.
Yes, absolutely. Which brings us to our next point, which is, what are the traits that a marketer should have to succeed in today's world?
See, fundamentally now, if you look at today's world, right, you have to be comfortable with the pace of change. Okay, the pace of change is the fastest it's ever been, and it is the slowest it ever will be. Right, so that is something which you got to get your head around. Like this, the VUCA world is now the new normal. Okay, don't expect, you got to be comfortable with volatility, with uncertainty. This is the environment we're going to operate in. Also now there's this huge onslaught happening from left of field competitors, from left of field technologies entering mainstream, and this is, disruption is a way of life. Disrupt or be disrupted. Now it's better you disrupt yourself. So as marketers, the biggest challenge then becomes is how do you, don't get scared in an environment like this. How do you do your marketing, and how do you understand and work with an environment like this? So, going back to the previous point, it gets equally important to unlearn and relearn, and that is where the success and failure will lie. And it's not only us, it's also the agencies we work with, because we're just used to doing work in a certain way. We're used to a 30-second TVC, but fundamentally what's happening in the environment today, consumers are deciding what they want to watch. So the day and age of yours saying I'm going to buy airtime and the consumer is going to watch my product and job is done is over. They're going to zap you out. We are reaching a stage of a media dark environment where television and other media channels can't reach these people because they've decided to get their entertainment information from somewhere else. So now brands have to earn the right to talk to consumers. And the sooner we get a head around this, the easier life will become for us.
Absolutely. So besides being authentic, I think that is the absolute key of any brand. It's its reputation. Its reputation lies in its authenticity. But besides this, what are the other things you think will be helpful for a brand today to survive in this sort of environment?
So, of course, authenticity lies in the heart of the brand very clearly, and as you very rightly said, it is what it is. Now, for example, for brands now it gets even more important to matter to people. Okay, so now it's no longer the day and age where you have a great product and you make a great advertising, and I'm oversimplifying it and the work is done. It's about giving people something to believe in. For that to happen, a lot of work needs to be done. You need to see your consumers not just as shoppers or consumers of your product, but as real people in real lives, and you need to understand their pressure points. We are now in a world where we've got the attention deficit consumer, we've got high levels of cynicism, and so you've got to give people something to believe in. Now there will be some people who will resonate to, some people it won't resonate to, but very important for us to take a stand. And that becomes very, very important. And in today's day and age, you have to be who you are, because otherwise you get caught out like this.
Absolutely. So it again comes back to the authenticity, and it just comes back to that honesty and that human connection that you're trying to make with the brand.
Absolutely, and take a stance.
Yes.
Stand for something. You don't have to appeal to everybody. You do not settle for the lowest common denominator. Stand for something, believe in it, and just take it as logical end, and you'll find a lot more people resonating with that.
Absolutely. So as what is your day to day? What does a typical day look like for you in your role?
I think if people found out what my typical day looks like, they'll realize I don't have much work to do. But I think fundamentally my typical day is to there are two, three aspects of my typical day. One is, I think I see myself as a channel of best practices and learning. So I spend a lot of time meeting people from outside the industry, meeting people from different functions, meeting people from research agencies to understand what else is happening. What is the new media coming about? What are we, something which may be happening in a totally unrelated industry, but we've noticed how the ripple effect now is, it's one large level playing field. So a lot of my time goes into understanding and learning that, and taking those learnings and passing them on my team. And I'd say that is my most important job, because that is just being awake and aware of what's happening. And the second most important part of my job is to just create a sense of urgency and sense of panic. We cannot afford complacency. There are great marketeers in my company. We have great thinking from an agency perspective and a brand support perspective. The problem is when you got such a beautiful infrastructure, it is very, very easy to get complacent, and that's when it hits you. So my biggest job is to raise the bar, to share the learnings, and to really push the team into really challenging themselves. And that's honestly been with my agencies. That is my first brief to them. Don't tell me what I'm doing right. I know what I'm doing right. Tell me what I'm not doing, what somebody else is doing. Help me learn, because I refuse to believe that all the great work in this industry being done by my company. there is some outstanding work happening outside. Don't walk into a presentation and and hope that your objective make me happy. Your objective is to instill fear in me. And that seems to be working very well. So, I've got agencies coming in saying, listen, hey, this is a new thing happening, let's try this out, this is a new, and I have no issues in putting some money down and learning, and I'm happy with failing because that's the way it is. It's a world of fast fail now.
Right, absolutely. What sort of examples can you give of something which you initially thought this is not going to work, but then the data and the willingness to try actually turned out to be good?
Honestly, it pretty much happens every day. I mean, I'm not being able to kind of come up with a pinpoint anything, and that's pretty much the brief of my team to my team as well, saying, listen, I fundamentally, they may come up with an idea, and I say, honestly, I fundamentally don't believe in this, but if you feel strongly about it, go ahead and do it. Let's all learn together. And you see this kind of approach coming in, and it becomes a very iterative approach. So it's very difficult for me to pinpoint at that. But if you see our marketing plans at the end of the year are very, very different from the marketing plan at the beginning of the year, because from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, the environment changes more than 365 times. And I have a lot of products that are supposed to launch but haven't been launched because something has gone wrong, and I have a lot of new successes have come in because the team has improvised and thought, and so it's a very iterative thing which happens. But we're all in a learning journey. For me to turn around and say I know best would be completely wrong, and would be very arrogant of me, because a lot of times the team has proved me wrong. They said, listen, we fundamentally believe in this. Okay, go ahead and do it. And a lot of times, it's kind of worked for them, and it's worked for all of us. Sometimes we've all walked away with learnings. So their success rate is, as good as mine.
Okay, fantastic. That's absolutely great insight there. I want to ask about this buzzword that's being thrown around. This buzzword that's being thrown around at the moment is influencer marketing. And what is your take on that? And how do you think that actually helps marketing today?
Okay. So yes, I think the industry has been using influencers, for the past 4 or 5 years, and it's kind of entered mainstream a couple of years ago. Now, and the genesis of this started with people trusting strangers. On products and on reviews than trusting companies and people who they knew, and that's when you realized, and this gave band to this large people who had a large following who people trusted, and their brands who are piggybacking on that. But honestly, it has its pros and cons. Of course, it is a very good medium to last out, but let's go back to the original point of authenticity. If you're not authentic as a brand and you're trying to piggy ride on an influencer, you will not only damage your brand further, but you'll damage the influencer as well. So the influencer marketing is just a channel, but a lot more hard work needs to happen in ensuring that otherwise the influencer is authentic, the brand is authentic, and the platform where you're having the conversation is a platform which works for both of you. Otherwise, it's akin to buying airtime on television and probably wasting half your money.
Yes, absolutely. You're so right. There's another one which is content marketing.
Yes, absolutely. Well, fundamentally, yes, I think content marketing is very, very important. Because basically what's happening, people are now choosing what they want to watch, when they want to watch. Okay, now those days of my entering your home through a 15 or 30-second paid commercial are gone, right? Most of us get entertainment on YouTube. I don't know when the last time you watched television, but I would hazard a guess you haven't watched television for a week or a month or something. Ages ago. Yeah, there you are. And you would be the prime TG for a lot of companies, FMCG and non-FMCG, right? But now I have to earn the right of talking to you, as opposed to buying my way through, right? As someone very rightly said, soon advertising will be the tax only the poor pay, because rich will get their entertainment on iFlix, on Netflix, on YouTube, and they will decide whether they want to allow brands in or not. Now, So therefore, if I want to talk to you, I need to understand what your passion points are. And of course, again, those passion points have to be passion points I can own. And hence, I have to get into the right content into what works for you. And hence, content marketing is a way out. And it's a very important way out. But then again, you have to be very, very sharp and very, very clear on what content you want to own and how does it fit with who you are as a brand.
Okay, and you've got a whole portfolio of different brands, and they're all being managed independently. How do you keep your head around all these different things that are going on? I mean, is there a hack? Is there a hack that you employ?
No, there is no hack, to be honest with you. I think it inherently boils down to is having that intimate and personal relationship with that brand. Okay, you need to know and understand that brand inherently. Okay, and having that little close connect, having that emotional bond. Once you do that, you know what works, what doesn't work. I am blessed with having a great set of people working on my brands who also have this emotional connect. I mean, I've got people in my brand team who've turned down promotions, who've turned down job offers because they want to work for that brand, because that's the kind of emotional connect they feel. And honestly, I am very lucky to have people like this in my brand team. Now, for me, I am not the gatekeeper or the custodian. It is the shared custody of the brand, and there is absolutely no sense of false sense of authority in me, and it's just a question of once you understand and you realize that the emotional connect which you have the brand and the understanding you get from it is there with the team as well, the job is done, because they come up with stuff which is absolutely great, and and it is bang on, and it is core to the brand. So I think the hack in this would be to invest that time early enough in the day in ensuring that this relationship is built, that your brand team understands the brand and the essence and the core and the purpose of the brand and has an emotional connect with them. And once that is done, you can go home and go to sleep, which is pretty much what I do.
Fantastic. Now, one of the other things I wanted to ask you is there's a disconnect between sales and marketing. Usually, I see this in a lot of organizations, a lot of industries. Do you see this in Unilever? And if so, what are the things that you're doing to address them?
Honestly, that is one of the saddest things if it's happening in our industry. I don't see it happening in Unilever, to be honest with you, because fundamentally I think all of us are there to really serve the consumer, and sales helps in the last mile delivery of it, and it's as important for sales to understand the brand and its marketing and what it stands for, as much it is for marketing to understand how sales is going to get the last mile delivery on this one, because end of the day, the person who brings it live at the shop floor is not the brand team, it's a sales team. And vice versa, if marketing does not realize and understand that what the channel environment is, what the challenges are, there's no way you can succeed. Then you're working in ivory towers and in silos. And I think one way which this problem hasn't really happened in Unilever is that, firstly, most of our marketeers have good, strong sales experience, and you ensure that this cross people from sales go to marketing and vice versa, and there is this complete understanding. The second one, what we've gone and done is that we've organized our business teams in this connected for world, in this new structure, where you have a cross-functional team which sits together, which consists of both of sales, marketing, supply chain, finance. So you've got all the functions represented, and they kind of sit together as brand custodians. So what this ensures is first complete transparency and understanding, and more importantly, understanding between the top line and the bottom line of the P&L and how each element interacts. Otherwise, you end up having conversations where people want more money but don't want accountability, or they want more spends for some B activity. And I think this is something that worked really well. This whole connected for world, connected for growth structure which we've got in, which is really helping us a lot.
Okay, that's really great. In terms of the team that you have right now, you're very pleased with the team that you have. How do you recruit? How do you search, and how do you find the people that you know will fit in your organization?
So I have, I cannot take credit for this team because I have inherited it. So obviously my predecessors have done some excellent job. You know, I've done a fantastic job in getting this team together. I think, I think a lot of departments have kind of worked very hard. I think HR in Unilever has done its fair share of hard work in really kind of understanding the DNA of the organization and really kind of distilling that down in terms of the CVs which we get, because I've sat for a couple of interviews, and to be honest with you, all the candidates were great. So obviously there's a lot of hard work done by HR. I'd love to take the credit for it, but you know, that'll be pretty wrong of me and unauthentic.
Okay.
So, but you know, and I think the environment also plays a role. You know, you end up attracting the people for whom things like this matter, because end of the day, there are a lot of companies, you know, vying for good talent, and there are a lot of good companies in Malaysia. You know, I mean, and they're pretty much at par. You know, I wouldn't be arrogant enough to say, oh, we are the best. We're not. I mean, there are you know, probably 7-8 companies in that what I would call good companies. So there's a lot. You know, for the talent to choose from, and you pretty much decide where you will feel at home, because end of the day, you know, you spend 75% of your waking life, you know, in that office, and you with those colleagues, and you know, honestly, if you're miserable, then you really need to reevaluate.
Absolutely, so right, so right. I just want to also say that a lot of companies are trying to embark upon a brand storytelling journey. You know, they're trying to tell their brand story better. They're trying to communicate something authentically. Now, what are some of the steps you would advise for someone who wants to start on that journey?
See, I think there are 3 or 4 different elements which you need to do, and you need to do them, you know, simultaneously, because I don't think there is first this sequential hierarchy. First, you're going to need to go deep into your brand. What is your brand all about? Just, you know, do a bit of brand archaeology. At what moments in time did you really resonate? What were the great highs? What were the lows? What did you do? So what is there in your DNA? What allowed you to exist? Okay, and have that fundamental understanding of it. Then you need to understand who is my consumer, and sometimes you may say that, you know, this consumer is not correct, and then once you understand what consumer demographic you're targeting to, then you need to look at the life of that consumer from morning to evening, not just that shopper occasion or the consumption occasion, right? What are the pressure points? What are the pain points? What matters? Because the world has now come together, you know, because of technology. It is much closer and much smaller. So, and the consumers, people have realized that what I do, the impact and what impact it has on the environment, and that I play an important role in ensuring that I can protect the environment for the future generations. And they're getting a lot more demanding of the brands and the companies that operate in. Now, this is a great place to be. So you need to understand that aspect of it. Real people with real lives, understand where you were great, what is a brand all about, and see where the two meet, and see if there's something really there, a really pain point in my consumer's life, in their routine, which I can elevate. And you know, honestly, you don't, you know, this cuts across categories. So it's not something which is for personal care brands or for foods brands, or you know, or home care's low involvement. That's all out of the window. It is as true for a cleaning brand as it is for a cream, as it is for something you consume, and that's you know, it's a universal truth now.
It's putting the customer at the heart of everything that you do and building your brand around.
Yeah, it's putting a real person at the heart of everything you do, and understanding that real person's touch points, as opposed to one you know, where historically you would put up one photograph and with 4 lines. It's, you know, it's a little more than that, because that consumer has a lot more facets to her life, his or her life, and
which brings us to our next point, which is big data, and how data is actually coming in a big way in how people evaluate and make decisions moving forward. So now there's the customer data points are increasing exponentially as we are able to understand the customer better. So what are you doing at Unilever to actually help to make your marketing more targeted to the individual?
So in Unilever, we have a very large people data center, right, which basically is geared towards understanding what are consumers talking about, what is happening, what are the latest trends, and that has now emerged as a very important research tool. Now you really don't have to commission researchers. You've got this very large database. This is also allowing us to gather a lot of data, and a lot of people are telling us, so you have a lot of loyalty schemes, etc., where people opt in. And of course, the first principle of big data is that you cannot collect anybody's data without their permission, and every data which is collected has to be for a purpose and is time bound. So you cannot store it till eternity, right? So, but what it allows you to do is it increases relevance. That's fundamentally, if you kind of distill it down, how is data helping marketing? If you really distill it down to the lowest common denominator, it basically allows us to improve relevance. Now, it allows me to understand what your passion points are, what your pain points are, and how my brand can help you a little bit. This, of course, with your explicit permission of using your data, because if you don't have your permission, then I have no right to use your data, and as Unilever, we don't do that at all. And so the messages to you get a lot more relevant. You're a lot more open to receiving those messages, and that's fundamentally what, at a very distilled level is what we're doing with big data.
Okay, that's awesome, really awesome. What are some of the big mistakes, or you think some of the common mistakes that marketers are making today? See,
I think. There are fundamentally 2 or 3 mistakes which the marketing community is making. First is complacency. Okay, and it's it's happening, but it'll never happen to me. It'll never happen to my industry. You hear a lot of that happening with e-commerce, for example. Or there is a live example of disruption taking place in e-commerce with the Amazons and the Alibabas of the world. But you still see a bit of complacency in the market when you go out, where people say, oh, it's very small, or it'll be aged before it becomes big, because it'll happen overnight. So I think complacency is our biggest enemy, and the more successful we are, the more complacent we get. So for me, that becomes the one of the biggest mistakes which we are making. The other one is not anticipating the future, which it's waiting to be disrupted, and our FMCG industry, I think, hasn't been as disrupted as yet as some of the other industries, but you will see disruption coming in a big way, and it's very difficult to predict disruption, because it wouldn't be called disruption if you knew what is happening, right? But it's how do you kind of start disrupting yourself? How do you start challenging yourself? And and how do you kind of walk away from what has worked in the past? And I see the marketing community make that mistake very often, and that will be the end of us.
Okay, that's something we must definitely avoid. Actively look out for the blind spots, and try to look around corners.
Absolutely.
And use data to project that.
And if you figure it out, let me know.
Okay, thank you so much, Shiv.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate this.
Yeah,
thank you for
it was
this.
an honor.